Now, let's dive into Vishvamitra's story because his is very unique. And one of the things that a lot of the students of Sri Kaleshwar said is that telling the story of Vishvamitra was actually one of his favorite things to do. He would tell the story all the time, a little bit different every time. And some of his students have even said that it would almost start to sound really personal. Like when he would tell the story, you'd almost start to get the impression that maybe he was telling it in a really, really personal kind of way. So it did kind of, I think, leave a little bit of a seed of wonder within his students as to what his connection was, or maybe as an incarnate of, I don't know. But I did want to share that. So Vishvamitra was a little bit different than the other Saptarishis. He was not born of the Saptarishi class, so to speak. He was actually of some sort of heritage here, a king upon the earth plane, but really devoted and dedicated to his practice. And so he spent literally thousands of years practicing these practices. The longer he studied, obviously, the longer his longevity of life. A human, probably wouldn't have lived that long. So we can also start to get curious about this whole idea of the story within Vishvamitra of thousands of years of devotion and practice. And he started to become so advanced with his accumulation of energy that literally he was appointed a Saptarishi along with all of these other rishis. So he had kind of a unique energy within that. And during part of his path of his practice, he started kind of a new thing that was on this path of his practice to do. And within that, the stipulation of it was to not have sex. Now, it wasn't uncommon to have sex. It wasn't out of the field for him to be able to do that. It's just for this particular next practice he was supposed to do, he was supposed to just be abstinent for that amount of time to doing this practice. So he went off and he set off to go do his practice. He was definitely, so devoted that he was with so much love ready to do it. Well, within this, he was doing this process with the Mother Divine. And so, again, that was the reason why to abstain from sex with mortals or others. It was really about him kind of merging as a devotion to the Mother Divine. So, within this, he started building his energy bigger and bigger and bigger during this time. It was so like noticeable that these basically Indra not the other Septarishis, but Indra, who is basically kind of a lord over the gods, started to take notice of his massive accumulation of his energy and his power, and Indra started to get really, really jealous. Indra has a huge jealous energy to him. Um, Indra has many times even been associated with Enlil. So I do find this as an interesting correlation. I'm not saying this is an absolute at all, but just something maybe to question or even think about. So within this, Indra had huge jealousy about what Vishvamitra was up to and what he was doing. And so he devised a plan. And he basically got this beautiful woman. Now, this wasn't just any beautiful woman. There's like this whole story of the Asuras and the Devas churning the ocean of milk with some serpent around a mountain, and of there these divine things were coming from it. And one of these divine things was this beautiful woman, and she was just incredible. Her name was Manaka, and she was just stunning and beautiful. Indra sent Manaka down to Vishvamitra where he was meditating, and he was in his stance of meditation, so he didn't take no notice of her. But after a while, he actually opened and within the statements, and I think the way that Sri Kaleshwar said it is he opened his third eye. So whatever that metaphor might mean, he basically allowed himself to take his vision from the Divine Mother and witness this beautiful woman. And as he saw this beautiful woman dancing there, with all of her acrobats and her dazzle and her jewelry and her beauty, he's kind of just decided, yeah, maybe 20 minutes won't make a difference. Maybe I can be with her for just a moment and that will be okay. Well, there was spells around this. There really was, because as he took his sights off of his mantras and his practice for a moment, he slept with this woman. And he was romping around with her and playing, and then he was like, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, I gotta stop. I gotta stop. I cannot be doing this. I have to go back to my practice with, thank you, you're beautiful. It was wonderful, but I gotta go. I have a practice and a dedication to do." Well, as he left, he was leaving, he was basically feeling like it was just like maybe 20 minutes that he'd been with her, maybe a couple hours at the most. And she looked at him and went, no, it's actually been 250 years that we've been here frolicking and making love with each other. And she's all like, "By the way, you have a grown daughter." Well, he became enraged and furious at this time. He realized immediately that he had basically been manipulated and like a spell cast. So if he thought it was like 20 minutes or 2 hours at the most, but it was really 250 years, I think we could start to go like, it looks like some sort of time manipulation or some sort of time dilation, something dimensional that really got played on him. So he literally got pulled away from his practice for 250 years of his practice time. He was so upset, and within this, he immediately realized. So it's interesting because Manaka at that time, she was just like, "Oh, he's mad." Phew, and she took off. That was it. She took off. I think she really did, like him and enjoy her time with him, but in the end realized that, oh, I am not in a good space right now. I'm out of here. And within that, he went storming to the realm of the gods. So he went to the place of Indra and he got to these gates, and there were these guards at the gate, and the gates guardsmen looked at him and they said, "No, you can't come in." And Vishvamitra was furious. He says, "I am one of you. I am from this land. Let me in now." And they were like, "No." And they were like laughing at him because they were like, "You've lost all your power. You're not one of us anymore." Well, Vishvamitra at this time, he is literally yelling and screaming. And it's interesting because Sri Kalishwar said that was what he should have done. That in that moment, it wasn't about him going in a rage or losing his mind, but in that moment, recognizing that there is a command. So I think there's something for us to take from that, because Sri Kalishwar said he should be angry. He should yell at them. He should act that way. And so I think there's something for us to even meditate on that very aspect, that when we are manipulated or tricked, that there is the right for us to yell at these manipulation forces and say, "No, I do not consent." Well, in short, they did not let him in. They did not let him in the gates. And so he turned around. Now, remember, he's trying to go into that loka. From again our perspectives of loka, even though it's a different dimension, it's many times also referred to as another planet where these gods were. So he turned around. He left that planet, that plane, that place where those gods were, and he left. So within this, he decided to go back and just build up his energy again. He had lost everything he'd built up. So he went back and started meditating for thousands of years again in order to start to build his energy again. And as he was doing this, he started to have these visions. He started to connect with these other aspects of the Divine Mother. And he actually connected to a completely different aspect of the mother, a completely almost, it's interesting here in the story because it's almost like he connected to a completely different mother in some ways, or a different aspect or dimension or dream of the mother. So within this, he created a whole new world, like a whole new creation. And in some ways, it's like all of this then begins to become Vishvamitra's new creation. So, in the form of him going through all of that turmoil and losing all of his power and having to build it up again, he actually finds the Gayatri. So, the Gayatri mantra is actually, he hears or he connects to this aspect of the Divine Mother that is outside of the matrix or a mother that Indra and his god beings that he's hanging out with are existing in. And in Indra's reality, there is the karmic cycles. It is the years and thousands of years of reincarnation and doing over and over and over again. Well, Vishvamitra hears within the womb of mother a different aspect of the mother, and it's the Gayatri Mantra. And it is said within the phrases of the Gayatri Mantra that there is more wisdom within just the Gayatri Mantra and those lines of it than all four, I think, verses in the Rig Veda or chapters or sections within it. I'm not sure exactly how they're referred to, but within this, he connected to this. He found that sound and he connected to that matrix aspect of it and really, literally created a new creation. Within this creation, he created a brand new place that transcended any of those laws and bylaws and those multiplicities of incarnations and all of these things. In fact, he found basically the loophole outside of the bindings of these reincarnational lifetimes. So they're saying, that it's like when you meditate with the Gayatri mantra, you begin to hear her form, her sound. And within this, it begins to create the liberation and the freedom. The Gayatri mantra literally connects us to like the Bhu Loka. It's another realm. It's outside of this plane to where we can actually connect to a higher deity plane, if you will, that allows a direct link for that energy where we have direct connection to it so we don't have to go through all these other loopholes from the old ways of I believe it was again the four stances of the Vedas, actually, not maybe the Rig Veda, or it might all be the same thing and I might be mixing it up. But one of the things I love about this story is recognizing Vishvamitra was unique in his own way. First of all, he wasn't created like all the other rishis. He basically became a created rishi within his own self. He went through an entire journey of literally building up all of his power and then losing all of his power. And through that determination and that devotion, he literally reconnected to a new sound of the mother that, to me, like when I hear this, I'm going like, this is literally, he found the code behind the matrix for the door out that bypasses all the BS of all of these laws and intricacies and passed on karmas and debts and all of these things, and a direct link to an aspect of the mother that creates this ultimate freedom. So within this, I think this is very interesting that Vishvamitra is also connected to the womb chakra mantras, the Saptarishi channels, the Sri yantra, and these very sacred palm leaf manuscripts, that as we start to understand that these wombs are worlds, and when we start to learn they're all a bit different, I think the story of Barbello gives us another perspective to start to look at some of these energies, so we can start to look at how there is these dreams that get created, and when we exist within them, there are ways out beyond to higher planes of consciousness. So this, I think, is very special as you contemplate the Saptarishis, which are again the seven rishis, as you contemplate Vishvamitra in that connection to the Gayatri mantra, this really beautiful story that really is the success out of all this trial and tribulation to really actually find something that supersedes beyond all of the rigorous games that were played before. And it was almost like a destined journey from the divine for him to really find this new sound within the Divine Mother that actually bypasses, part of my language, all of BS. So within that, this is something very special just to contemplate as you work with a lot of these things we're talking about.